Hi everybody. Welcome to Newton School Launchpad session. I'm myself Nitin Jain. I'll be your instructor for this course, which is Welcome to React. Let me just first tell you about what Launchpad is. Launchpad is an initiative by a Newton School, which allows like people to learn about coding from scratch without any cost. So you can learn about different courses like this one and other courses at free of cost. So let's see how to just look at the Newton School website and see what we have to do to enroll into one of the courses like this one. So if you're new to Newton School, you just need to click upon the sign up page. It will take you up to the sign up form where you will be able to sign up on the Newton School. After you sign up, you will be opened with this dashboard page where you can see about the tracks, playground, and the context. So let's just talk about the tracks first. So on the tracks page, you can see the different courses that we have at the launch in the launchpad. So you can see the launchpad courses are free, and so the course which we are currently doing is React JS for beginners. So when you click on the apply, it will take you to the form and you'll have to fill the current city. So just let's say I have the city and my bachelor's. So and you have to tell from where you heard about it. So like just say I heard about LinkedIn, and you have to also mention the course we have. Sorry, from the college we are from. From my college, and when you apply, you will be like enrolled into the course, and when you click on more details, you will be presented with the course structure. And so here is the introduction part currently, and you also will be able to see the assignments and other things that will be given here only. And we also have one more thing, which is called as playground. So playground is basically an IDE of sort, where you can just write up the code and test it whether it is working or not. And so like just creating a playground here currently. Um, let's and if we hit create, we'll be redirected to ID, which is of Newton School, and which will allow you to write code and also allow you to submit whatever input you want to submit, and the output will be displayed here. So that's about Newton School and Launchpad. So I'll be telling you about myself. So I graduated did my MTech from IIT Dhanbad last year, graduated, and currently working as a full stack developer Property Loop. So that's about it for me. Uh, okay, so I hope my screen is visible to all you guys, and let's start with the course. So just let me share the PPT. So this is a Launchpad course by Newton School. So what we are going to learn here is we're going to learn about React and the basics of React. What React is basically a UI library which allows you to create very a dynamic UIs using JavaScript. So basically, before React, we had ability to make a UI from JavaScript, but there were some problems with that. Just going to the basics, like how React came into existence and why we need React. So um, so React was launched in 2015, and before that we have frameworks like Angular, and before that we used PHP and HTML, JavaScript, and all those things. The problem was that with those things you have to like everything. uh, in that prospect was like everything was server side rendered, and you also have to and deal with the whole uh, HTML changes to be done for every render. So like whenever, if you remember like old website, whenever you clicked on something, the whole page would like refresh, and it will take long time to just load something new, whichever like just you click the button to increase the counter or sort. So that's what the React sort. So we will be going to looking at this. So this is the first lecture, and we'll be looking into what is the React, and what is the features is, and we're going to discuss about what is JSX basically, and what are the features of the React. So let's get started with it. So okay, so as I mentioned, React is a JavaScript library. So it allows you to make very interactive user interfaces, and it makes it so easy to make those user interfaces by something called as dividing the interface into very small chunks of interface. So like in the example coming slides, you will see what actually how React allow us to make those things. So React is an open source library developed by Facebook, and it started, so like it was published in like 2015, and it has gained most of the popularity around 2017. And now the React is the like one of the most popular front end libraries we have for user interfaces. So basically, when I was talking about components or making like things very reusable and very small. So basically, since this is an if you will see my slide, like this is the Instagram page. So Instagram is fully developed in React. So what they have done is every small part of the one Instagram page is a component. So you will learn about the component basically in the next lecture. But just to make sure how you should use React, and how React enables you to make reuse of a code. So what we do is we divide every single chunk of it, and whatever we are displaying in a page, into a component. So let's say we have this component. So search component would be a different thing. This description component will be a different component. This stories will be a different component, and these posts will be a different component. Each thing is a different component, unrelated to each other. They will be rendered into single page only. So what the use of it is, suppose you click on the follow button. Uh, when you click on the follow button, the only thing that needs to be changed is follow button needs to be like removed, and you should see like followed or following. Yeah. So in the previous, like when we didn't have React, we would click on the follow button, and the page will refresh or fully. Then you will be able to see that you have followed the person. Now, what React allows us to do is, since we divided these things into small components, which are independent to each other. So when you click on the follow button, you will be like only changing the you only changing things inside this component. So only this component will be refreshing, not every component inside the page. And how React does it, we'll be discussing in the coming lectures. So this is React divides UI into multiple components, and which makes it easier to debug, and also it makes the web page faster, and any events that are happening on the web page will not affect the whole web page, only affect just the component that it is the event fired. So now we will be moving why we'll be using React. So the reason for using React is one I just mentioned from the example of Instagram, that React allows us to create very dynamic web application, And also it allows you to create very reusable components. So like whenever you are making a search component, so like say you have a search bar, just going to back slide. So you have this search bar, and now this search bar is here, but there could be use of this search bar on other places also. Like you maybe Instagram in the future add a search bar for post also, or for something else. So they don't have to rewrite the whole search bar code, whatever they written in here. They will be able to write. They will just be able to use this directly wherever they want. So that is a very useful feature, because you don't have to waste time writing the same code again and again and again. And that, like in a big project and in a big company, it matters very much, because they want to minimize the time that is required for development for any given feature. And it also gives us performance enhancement. So the way it enhances the performance, so going back to the previous slide again. So like suppose you clicked on the follow button, okay? So what will happen is the way previously would be happening is whole page would be reloading. That is like performance wise, it was detrimental for a web page, and for the user point of view, it was also not very good. User don't like to see like page refreshing again and again on every click. So what React allows us to do is performance wise is not refresh the whole page, but only refresh whatever the component that is changed. Um, about the this thing, the performance enhancement, you'll be able to better understand performance enhancement once you learn the way React component works and how React component make those changes, like reflect those changes on the UI. Reusable component. This is you can use the same component which you used in the previous somewhere in the same in the current feature also, if it does not have any different requirements. Now unidirectional data flow. So basically, what happens is React is like a tree. So basically, what you have is suppose there is we have a tree, like a real tree. So what happens is we have a root, and then we have the branches and leaves and all those things. So what React does is you have a root component which will be rendered first, no matter what happens. So like whenever your applications get access to URL, suppose you go to Instagram.com, so there will be a component there which will be called first. That is the root component. Okay, and from that you will be making very so many components that are like child components, we would say, or we could say the branches of our root. So in a tree there will be branches, so those components will be the branches of the our tree. So unidirectional data flow means is the data that is coming, the data that is coming is only going to come from the root. So like data will only flow in one direction. You cannot have data from leaves coming to branches and then branches giving data to the root. It will not happen in React. React works in this manner, like you have a root and you will always pass on data forward, not backwards. So that's what unidirectional data flow means. You will understand these things in way better way in the coming lectures, and we'll be talking about these specifically. Small learning curve. So basically, it is JavaScript. So you don't have to much learn about any new language like Java or something. So if you are from web development background, or you even done some JavaScript some time back, you will be able to just easily grasp it. And there is also some things in React, like frameworks of React or extensions of React, that we will say, that allows you to do mobile apps. So if you have used Airbnb or Messenger, these things like of apps, so what they do is they like use the React Native, something called React Native, to develop mobile apps for iOS and Android. What how this works and what they do is beyond this course, but just to give you a brief idea about this is basically what happens is um, they use the same code base, which is in React to just make both Android and iOS apps. That that's and in a gist, that would be it. If you want in detail, you can look at the Launchpad courses, and you will find some course where you can find how React Native works and what React Native is. And there one more thing is React has some tools, extensions, browser extensions to debug the components that we have. So maybe we're discussing the extensions of React, some React dev tools that we call it. So basically, in those extensions, we can see whatever is going on in the extension. So like whatever is going on in that component, we can see. So if you have done some kind of debugging previously in any of your courses or ever doing some side projects, you will be noticing that you will make debug points, and then you will look in what is the data coming and what is the data going. So that's what they allow us to do. Those extensions will allow us to see what is there's something called state and props in the React, which will discuss in later, and they allow us to check what state and what is the props at the current moment when we are checking. So that is the now we'll coming to features. What are the features that we have in the React? So JSX, what is JSX? JSX is nothing much. Just it's just an extension of JavaScript. So basically, what happens is whenever you want to create a node or create an tag in an HTML, so you have to call like if you have done JavaScript course. So just a minute. Just a moment. So if we go to the playground and just look at that and select TypeScript, JavaScript, TypeScript. So whenever we want to create an element, we have to call from JavaScript create element function. And same goes with React. So in React, what you have to do is call react.create create element. Now this syntax is easy if you want to just create one or two elements. But generally, what happens is in big code in a big code base is you don't have one or two lines of code to write in a React component. It will be like hundreds of lines of code writing and multiple components being coupled together. So what JSX allows us to do is write JavaScript inside, HTML inside JavaScript code. So basically, if you go into this, okay. So yeah, this is how JSX works. So this is a JavaScript syntax, const simple. We are declaring a simple variable which is constant, and this is HTML. So this is how JSX makes it possible. So this is what JSX makes it possible. Basically, JSX allows us to write these HTML strings inside JavaScript. Otherwise, what you have to do is we have to make a react.create element and then create an element h1 and then assign its text value to hello world. That will be very painful if you have to write like hundreds of lines of code and you have to do every time for every element. So that's what JSX is basically. So basically, JSX helps us in making code easier to understand and debug. Obviously, because you don't have to look at react.create element like heap of react.create element. We are having like lines of code of react.create element only. That will be very painful to debug. If you have any bug, any sort of bug in a big project, that would be like very painful. So what JSX allows us to do is make the code easier to understand. So anybody who knows React can understand what it is doing. And also debug it using debug tools that we discussed, like extensions that we have in the browsers to debug what is currently happening in the document object model. So basically, we can say JSX, if you have to simplify, is we combine JavaScript and HTML, and we get the JSX part. So that's it. That was for JSX. So we can see this is our JavaScript part. This is our HTML part, the remaining portion. This is HTML part. And then we have the semicolon. Semicolon is not part of HTML. This is part of JavaScript. And this is how JSX allow us to do it. To give you just a concrete example, how will JSX, how will it look? So like, let's say we are making a div somewhere. We have to make a div. Inside that div, we have to make a paragraph which will say, hello, there is, I am Nitin. So whenever you have to write this thing inside HTML, you can just write this way. Like you can do this HTML tags, and this is just and we will make it a body. Yeah, that would be in the HTML when we are writing default HTML. But since we are writing JavaScript and we have to write it in JavaScript, the same thing. So it is not possible unless until we use create element and all those functions that JavaScript provides us. So if you have JSX, so if you are using JSX, you can just do is just say let's const my JSX. Then we can just copy this. We don't have to copy HTML and body thing. You will understand why we don't have to copy this thing when we create a project, basically from React, and just paste it. Now this will make an create an error. This will just does not look good, and also will be problematic uh, if we look at it. So we format it, and we also make it just enclosed in this bracket. This makes us like anybody who is looking at the code understand that this is JSX that is written here. So these are some good coding practice. One more thing I would like to point out. So whenever you are using JSX in a file, you need to make sure that, let's suppose this file name was test learning React. Okay, and you name it learning React.js. But you are using JSX, so this will give you an error because JSX is not directly supported in JS. So you have to make an change the extension from JS to JSX. So when you do that, and you will be able to use JSX in any file which is having JSX in extension. So JSX file is just normal JS, but it also allows you to use JSX syntax also. Now comes a very important part of the React, and the part where we will be understanding how React allows us to use reuse, how it allows to improve performance, and also allow us to reuse components from that we made earlier. So if you remember, just going back a bit. Yeah, so on this slide, you remember, like we divided our page into different components that we have. Basically, what React does is something called the virtual DOM. So if you don't know about DOM, DOM is whatever the HTML you see. So whenever you go to a page, let's say this page, on this page we have, so we do inspect element, and whatever you see here, this This is DOM. This is called document object model. So this is what defines what is going to be displayed on the browser. What React introduced as a concept was called as something called as virtual DOM. So what virtual DOM does is virtual DOM is basically like it's a in-memory copy. So whenever you load a website that is made in React, it will create the copy of the document object model that is you written into the that is written inside your component. Okay. So basically, if you just look at this is our normal document object model. We have a document, then we have a root element that is HTML, then we have head and some of the attributes of the head, and then we have body tag and attributes that body tag accepts. So this is our normal document object model. Now what virtual DOM is just a copy of this. So if you look into this example, this is our real DOM that is rendered in the browser, that is displayed in the browser. This is the virtual DOM that React makes. So what React does is first make this virtual DOM, and then whenever you visit a website, it first makes a virtual DOM, and whatever the page you visited, it will only mm, it will only display, or it will only make those components go inside the real DOM that are needed at that time. So suppose you have just going back there on the Instagram example. Suppose you were like yeah some on the page of Verge. Like suppose you was on the page of Verge and they didn't had any post. So like you don't have to make these post UI to be displayed on the DOM because they don't have any post. So what React will do is it will create the real DOM, as in like the post DOM was not even present in your code. But as soon as the post DOM comes up, a post comes up in the UI, post comes up in the backend whenever where you save your post, and your API request return something, it will change the real DOM to what the post DOM should have if it had the post. So like to give you more concrete example, let's just go there only. So just suppose you have this component and this component, they don't need to be there because the data associated to them was not there. So what React will do is it will not show these and these in the real DOM. Only the real DOM that will be shown is this. But as soon as suppose the user click a button and to show that something on that button, like say a hello message when it clicks on the button. So what and these component would be showing those. So whenever let's suppose this component has a button and this component the user clicked on the button, and on the click of the button the condition was you have to show this component. So what React will do is just first look at the virtual DOM. Virtual DOM it will look at, and it will check which component actually changed. So this component did not change because there was no change here. It just was button click. This component did not change. This component did not change, and this component did not change. It will not even touch these component in the real DOM because they did not change at all. Now, but the button click, the way you programmed it is when you click on this button, this component or this UI, um, uh, it will make a change in this UI. Since this UI had a change, what it will do, it will just render this one also in the real time. So what it will do is check what the changes. It will actually make a difference check, like what changes happened in the virtual DOM and in the what was in the real DOM. And if both of the things are same, it will not change ever, which was in the case of this component, because this was same here and here. But if something changes here, and previously it was different here, it will change whatever is reflected in the virtual DOM and reflect it here. But only just this component will be changed, not any other component. Just going from Instagram example. Uh, so suppose Verge on the page just posted on another stories. Okay. So and just forget how the story came to the UI, and looking at the fact that somehow the story came to the UI and it has to be displayed on the UI. So what the React will check is React first check this component, the stories component. This component will check, and it will check whatever the data this component currently have, is it different from the data it is receiving from the component recently. So, and for this particular case there is. So what it will do, it will refresh this component and also add like just here another story, some story that whatever that they published. So that's what virtual DOM is. So now a very genuine question arises: how this speeds up the performance of the React comp. So basically, what it is, if you know from the basics of computer, like a memory, like a RAM or a memory, is very fast compared to any other things. Like a RAM is very fast. So React is storing this virtual DOM in our memory. So it is so much fast to update this thing than to directly update this thing. So whenever we directly update this thing, it will be slow and will take more time, because this is not in memory, not happening on the browser. It is going to be like um so this is happening directly on the browser. The browser, whatever the browser display, this is happening in the memory that your tab is accessing. So like if you know, like every tab have a memory that it takes from a system. So the virtual DOM will be stored in the memory, and it will be very fast to update this thing compared to this thing. So what React does, whenever change happens, it will update the virtual DOM first, and when virtual DOM changes, an event will get fired that since virtual DOM is changed, check whether the real DOM and virtual DOM are same. If virtual DOM and real DOM are same, you don't have to do anything. If they are different, then change the real DOM. So suppose a very simple thing is so let's just remove everything here from here to just explain this. Basically, what would happen is basically what would happen is suppose you had something that that was going to change in this component, okay? But the change that was happening was coming from the API call. Like suppose you did something, you perform an action and the API returns some responses. So like API returns some responses, but the response received from the API was the same as previous one. So the no data in this component change. No data in this component change. Virtual DOM will change, but since the difference between virtual DOM and the real DOM is same, no change happening in the data, so no change happening in the how the UI is rendered and what UI is rendered. So virtual DOM will not trigger an event to change the real DOM. What this allows us to only render whenever the component or whenever the data related to the component or the page is changed. and this allows us to do make the UI more responsive and allows mm, like make user experience far much better compared to like whenever anything happens, does not matter if it changes anything or not, change the real DOM. So that is just a pretty sluggish way. So that's why the React applications are very fast if they're designed properly following the React principles. So that was about virtual DOM. That this is the most basic, most important concept of the React. If you understand how virtual DOM works and like what virtual DOM is, it makes everything easy. Like every time you will be, whenever you're designing a component, a very complex component, you will be able to very easily divide into simple components and then combine them and couple them together. So React, so just to reiterate what I said, is React keeps a lightweight representation of real DOM in the memory. That is what we call virtual DOM. And when so the reason why we do this is manipulating real DOM is much slower than virtual DOM because virtual DOM is in memory. And uh, so whenever the state of the object change, virtual DOM changes only that object in the real DOM instead of updating all objects. So as mentioned, like only that component get re-rendered changed whenever anything changes in that component, not any other component. So this is just an interactive example. So just looking at this is virtual DOM, this is real DOM. Currently nothing has changed here. When now we have changed these two components, the state of these objects are changed. Virtual DOM now to reflect these things in the real DOM, virtual DOM has to change these, change also in the real DOM. So that's what we're going to do here. That we can change in the real DOM from the virtual DOM also. And just to say here, these objects are just as it is in the virtual DOM because they were not changed. Only the ones this and this, they were changed. Now comes to the performance part. So as mentioned, React performance is basically virtual DOM is that makes allows us React application to be very fast because you don't have to do every change. You don't have to reflect changes that happened in another component to be reflected in another. So and also one more thing is from the development point of view, it makes very fast development because we can divide a very complex component. Suppose in the Instagram case, you have so many components in a page, and those components are very complex because they have API calls, they have other analytics works going on, many things going on in the background. So those components are very complex, and if you write just one component, one code to handle everything, your code like be so big, like it would be like thousands and thousands of lines. And whenever there is a something breaks down, you will be having a hard time to just even find out where it broke down and what caused the breakdown. So from the development point of view, this also allows us to make an application to be just fast, not for the user only, for the developer also. It allows us to debug it better and allows us to make the features more like future proof and scalable. One-way data binding. So what happens in the one-way data binding is uh, it basically what it does is uh, as from the examples we have seen, like just look at this example. So this node is a root. Okay. So data, whatever is going to flow, is always going to flow in this direction. Always going to flow in this direction, not in reverse directions. So looking just So data is always going to be flown in this direction only, the forward direction, or we can say top to bottom. Data is never going to be flowing from this direction. So what this means is you cannot make the data from the child. So this is a child and this is a parent. Yeah. So you cannot make the data flow from child to parent happen in React. Only way data will flow is from parent to child. This is the only way data can flow. There is no other way in which data can flow in React. Only ways from child to parent. Not even like a child from a sibling to sibling. You cannot make the data flow from the sibling to sibling. You can only make data flow from parent to child. Now, this arises a question. Suppose you have something in the child component. This is the child. It wants something that is in the parent, like some data that is in the parent, but the child component works on that data, so it needs to update that data. So what you have to do is something called as a prop. Prop is there in the React. So you will learn about the prop later on. So what you will have to do from the child, you will pass this whatever the update function or whatever the update mechanism has to be from the parent to the child, so that child can use it to update the properties that are from in parent. That's the only way you can update anything that is passed that is in the parent from the child. I hope it makes clear. If it is not, we will be able to make it clear, very clear, when we are going to do some practical, write some code and do the project. It will be very clear when we do that. Now, whenever anything happens in React, it is always an action. So whenever you do like a button click or anything that you do in the React is an action. So what happens is whenever you do an action, uh, uh, there are things that are changed. The store is basically what your code is currently. It will store what the code is currently, and whenever you make an action, the action will change the data objects in the store, and that the changes that are done in the store will be reflected back to the view that you will be seeing in the UI. So, yeah, suppose user make a button click. On button click, there is some UI change that happens. So that UI change will trigger change in data objects that are stored that is in the store, and those data objects that are changed will cause virtual DOM to change the real DOM, which will be then displayed into the view. Then we comes to extensions. So what extensions are basically the way, like uh, if you look at it this way, we have JavaScript. Okay, we have JavaScript. JavaScript is an sorry, React is an JavaScript. JSX. JSX is an extension of JavaScript because it allows us to do something more than what JavaScript allowed us to. So what JSX does is JSX allows us to write HTML inside JavaScript. Okay, so in the same way, extensions, React extensions allows us to do what React allows us to do plus something more. That something can be anything, but those are something more than what simple React allows us to do. So let's look at some of the extensions that we have that are most popular, and you might find useful if you learn them. So go into Launchpad and see if there are any posts, and if there is, feel free to learn. So what are different ways React extend? What are the different categories in which React extensions are? Mainly server-side rendering. So what server-side rendering is? Server-side rendering is Basically, whenever you are going to a website, there will be a server that is going to serve you a page that you're going to see on the browser. Yeah. So server side rendering means is basically whatever you are getting in terms of uh, the components and everything. So like instead of like everything running on the client side, instead of that, what happens is whenever you have to do certain changes, yes, or certain events, um this allows us to do just to put it a very just to put it in a better way is whenever like you have any changes into your applications UI or applications like display patterns. So like suppose Instagram changes current UI from any other UI. Okay. So what it allows us to do is without changing much of the code on the client, you can just change whatever your code is on the server, whatever the server you're having, and that will just make the changes reflect back on the client. It's a very vague description, but this is somewhat advanced topic, server-side rendering. And so this is beyond this course to discuss more about this. Mobile app development, as I mentioned, React Native. React Native is the most popular extension like of React. So what it allows us to do is it basically allows us to develop mobile app for both Android and iOS very easily. Like using the React principles, and everything is done in React and JavaScript. Nothing, you don't have to learn Java, you don't have to learn Swift or Objective C or Kotlin. Nothing you have to learn. You just need to know JavaScript and React, and you will be able to develop very good mobile applications for both iOS and Android. And there's some extensions also, which are Flux and Redux. These are also some very useful extensions, but not going to discuss them into more details because they're like not part of this course. So as I mentioned, React Native allows us to like deal with mobile application, allows us to make mobile application very easily using React and React principles, and also only JavaScript also. So Uh, a basic difference is between this app and native app. Native app is something is that you write in Java or Kotlin for Android or Objective C or Swift for iOS. Basically, there is only just a one difference is from a performance point of view, like since we're using JavaScript, what we have to do is we have to use a bridge or something called as a mediator or like intermediary. So like suppose you are going somewhere, like you're going to visit Delhi, and you don't know anything about Delhi, so you need a tour guide. So that you have to use. Same with React Native. Android does not know how the application will work. React Native, Android does not know what React is or what React Native is. So what you have to do is have some guide which will tell Android what it is and how you have to display in your application. So what happens is if your application is very resource intensive, like suppose you have a game like PUBG or Fortnite, React Native will have like if it's entirely developed in uh, React Native, it will be a bit more resource intensive than suppose say native app. Um, that would be only downside for the React Native if you talk about React Native. And so about basic apps that are built in React Native, Facebook app is built in React Native, Instagram, Pinterest, Uber, Skype, and these Tesla's apps are written in React Native. Now, Flux is also another extension of the what we say is extension of React, which allows us to make web applications. So uh, web applications for using React. So that would be it for this lecture. So basically, what we discuss in this lecture is what React is, how React works, and what virtual DOM is. Because the virtual DOM is the most important concept that you're going to learn in React. Like before component or before state, before props, anything you learn in React, before that you have to know what virtual DOM is. You have to be able to understand what virtual DOM is and how it works and what it allows us to do. So that's a very important concept. So we have learned that. You will be able to understand much better when we're going to work on a live project. And we're going to do it like in next lecture, we're going to make some very simple components and other things. And we're going to understand what state is, what props is. And what also we also learned because that React is just not for web development. We can develop mobile applications also with React. Uh, yeah, that's about it for this lecture. We'll continue the discussion ahead with next lecture.